Imagine the night sky over the most heavily defended city on the planet, Baghdad, in 1991. The Iraqi air defense system, built by the finest Soviet and French engineers, was considered impenetrable. Hundreds of radars scoured the sky, while thousands of anti-aircraft missiles and guns stood ready to obliterate any target that dared to violate its airspace. And then, suddenly, in the very heart of this citadel, deafening explosions erupted. The communications center, command bunkers, radar installations, the key nodes of the entire defense system were reduced to flaming ruins. But the radar screens were blank. There were no planes, no missiles, nothing. It was as if ghosts themselves had unleashed their wrath upon the city. But these were not ghosts. This was the first combat mission of the most secret aircraft in human history. A machine that officially didn't exist, an aircraft that resembled an alien spacecraft with faceted, unnatural angles coated in a mysterious black paint that absorbed light and radio waves. Its name was the F-117 Nighthawk. But its pilots called it the Wobblin' Goblin. This wasn't just a machine. It was a revolution, a technological leap that made all existing air defense systems obsolete overnight. The story of its creation is one of the greatest espionage and engineering thrillers of the 20th century. It's a story of how in the deepest secrecy in the isolated Nevada desert, a handful of brilliant engineers and courageous test pilots created a weapon that was hidden from the world for 30 years, a weapon capable of being completely invisible. Before we dive in, we'd like to ask for a little support. A like and a subscription would be the best way to thank us. Thank you. Prepare to immerse yourself in a world of classified technology and flights under the cover of darkness as we uncover the secret of the world's first stealth aircraft. To understand how this Black Phantom was born, we must go back to the mid-1970s. The Cold War was in full swing, and the Pentagon was facing a nightmarish problem. The Soviet Union had created an incredibly dense and sophisticated air defense network that covered all of Eastern Europe. The latest surface-to-air missile systems, like the S-117 that had shot down the famous U-2 spy plane, and the more modern S-125 and S-200, made any flight over enemy territory a suicide mission. The U.S. Air Force needed a way to breach this defense to strike key targets in the event of a war. It was then, deep within the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the legendary DARPA, that an idea was born which seemed like pure science fiction, to create an airplane that radars simply could not see. The idea of stealth, or low observability, was not new. But until that moment, all attempts had been limited to using radar-absorbent materials or special shaping that only slightly reduced an aircraft's detectability. A radical breakthrough was needed, and that breakthrough came not from the world of aviation, but from mathematics. In the early 1970s, Soviet physicist and mathematician Pyotr Ufimtsev published a paper titled Method of Edge Waves in the Physical Theory of Diffraction. In it, he laid out a mathematical model for calculating exactly how radio waves reflect off flat surfaces. In the Soviet Union, his work was largely ignored, considered to be of purely theoretical interest. But a translation of this paper fell into the hands of analysts at Lockheed's secret division, the famed Skunk Works, led by the legendary designer Kelly Johnson, creator of aircraft like the U-2 and the SR-71 Blackbird. The Skunk Works engineers, particularly the brilliant mathematician Denis Overholser, realized that Ufimtsev's work was the key to creating a truly stealth aircraft. They understood that if they built an airplane not of smooth aerodynamic curves, but of a collection of flat triangular panels angled in a specific way, they could make radar waves reflect away from the antenna like light off a faceted diamond. To a radar, such an aircraft would appear no larger than a small bird, or perhaps just background clutter on the screen. The idea was revolutionary, but it flew in the face of all the laws of aerodynamics. An aircraft built on this principle should have been extremely unstable in flight. In fact, it should have been unflyable. But by then, the first fly-by-wire control systems had emerged computers that could make thousands of corrections per second to the control surfaces, making even the most unstable airframe manageable. The project was given the codename Have Blue in the utmost secrecy. At the famous Area 51 in the Nevada desert, 2 scaled-down technology demonstrators were built. They looked absolutely alien. Faceted, angular, without a single smooth line. Even the engine air intakes were covered with special grills to hide the spinning turbine blades, a major source of radar reflection. The very first tests exceeded all expectations. When one of the Have Blue prototypes took to the air, the tracking radars at the test range simply lost it. It vanished. The operators could see it with their own eyes, but their screens were empty. The project was named Senior Trend, and the future aircraft was given the designation F-117. The F for fighter was a piece of deliberate misinformation. No one was supposed to guess that what was being created was a strike aircraft, a bomber. Everyone who worked on the project signed a lifelong non-disclosure agreement. Any mention of the program was punishable by a prison sentence. The F-117 was to become America's most closely guarded secret. The construction and testing of the F-117 took place under a cloak of unprecedented secrecy at the remote and isolated Tonopah Test Range airfield in Nevada. Designated on maps as Area 52, the pilots selected for the program were the best of the best. They effectively vanished from their normal lives. From Monday to Friday, they lived on the secret base, flying at night in machines that officially did not exist. On weekends, they returned home to their families, but were forbidden from saying a single word about their work. Their wives and children believed they were testing ordinary aircraft. These pilots were true phantoms. They lived double lives. All flights were conducted at night to avoid detection by Soviet spy satellites. The aircraft itself was unique in every way. Its angular shape, coated in special radar absorbent paint, made it an aerodynamic nightmare. Pilots said it flew like a brick. It had no radar of its own, so as not to emit any signals. All targeting was accomplished using an inertial navigation system and a laser designator. It was subsonic, not particularly maneuverable, and carried only 2 laser-guided bombs. Its sole defense was its invisibility. The pilots nicknamed it the Wobblin' Goblin for its instability in flight and its bizarre appearance. The entire program was built on risk. One of the test pilots was killed during a training flight. But step by step, flight by flight, the Air Force mastered this alien weapon. For 10 years, from 1981 to 1988, the world knew nothing of the F-117's existence. An entire squadron of Black Phantoms was based in the desert, ready at a moment's notice to strike an enemy who had no idea they were there. But keeping such a secret forever was impossible. Rumors began to leak. People living near the Nevada desert sometimes saw strange, silent, triangular lights in the night sky. In 1988, the Pentagon, realizing that hiding the aircraft any longer was pointless, decided to lift the veil of secrecy. A single, grainy photograph of the F-117 was released. The world gasped. It looked like no aircraft anyone had ever seen before. It was a shock, a demonstration of technological superiority that forced military analysts worldwide to rethink everything they knew about aerial warfare. But the Nighthawk's true baptism by fire was yet to come. The first combat operation for the F-117 was the 1989 invasion of Panama. 2 aircraft were tasked with dropping bombs near barracks housing soldiers loyal to the dictator Noriega, with the goal of stunning and demoralizing them without causing fatalities. The mission was not entirely successful due to poor coordination, but it provided the pilots with invaluable combat experience. The Nighthawk's true moment of triumph, however, awaited in the skies over Iraq during Operation Desert Storm in 1991. It was the F-117s that delivered the opening strikes of the war. On the very first night, hours before the main air campaign began, a squadron of Nighthawks penetrated Iraqi airspace with impunity. They flew directly over Baghdad, which was lit up and appeared to be a city at peace. The Iraqi radars were silent. They simply did not see them. With surgical precision, the F-117s dropped their laser-guided bombs on key targets, command centers, communication hubs, air defense headquarters, and government buildings. Overnight, Iraq's entire centralized defense system was decapitated and blinded. When hundreds of conventional aircraft swarmed into Iraqi skies a few hours later, they were already flying through breaches in the defenses created by the stealth jets. Over the course of the war, F-117s flew more than 1,200 combat sorties. They made up only 2.5% of the coalition's tactical aircraft, but struck over 40% of all strategic targets. And not a single plane was lost. Not one F-117 was even damaged by enemy fire. It was an absolute, unqualified victory for stealth technology. The F-117 became the symbol of a new era in military aviation, an era dominated by those who could strike while remaining unseen. Its angular, ominous silhouette became an icon of American military might. But all technology eventually becomes obsolete, and even invisibility has its limits. The triumph in Iraq made the F-117 a legend. But the story of this incredible aircraft didn't end there, and it was a story not only of victories, but also of tragedy. The Nighthawk's next major test came during the NATO operation against Yugoslavia in 1999, and it was here that the impossible happened. On March 27, 1999, on the fourth day of the bombing campaign, an F-117 with tail number 802 and call sign Vega 31, piloted by Lieutenant Colonel Dale Zelko, was shot down. How could this have happened? How could a stealth aircraft be detected and destroyed by an obsolete Soviet-made S-1-5 Neva surface-to-air missile system? The story is still surrounded by debate and myth, but the most likely version is a combination of ingenious tactics by the Serbian missile crew and a stroke of bad luck. The Serbian battery commander, Colonel Zoltan Dani, was not just a soldier but a talented engineer. He understood that a stealth aircraft couldn't be caught using standard methods, so he employed an unconventional approach. He ordered his crews to operate their equipment in non-standard ways, using their radars on lower frequencies than usual, where stealth technology was less effective. Furthermore, he practiced ambush tactics. The radar was switched on for only very brief periods, just a few seconds at a time, to prevent American electronic warfare aircraft from detecting it and launching an anti-radiation missile. On that fateful night, the F-117 was flying a predictable, previously used route. The American command, having grown confident in the jet's invulnerability, had become less cautious. At one point, as the Nighthawk opened its bomb bay doors to release its payload, its radar cross-section momentarily increased. And at that very instant, the Serbian radar was activated. A blip appeared on the screen for a split second. It was all they needed. Donnie gave the order to fire. Two missiles streaked into the night sky. One of them detonated near the aircraft, and its shrapnel tore through the wing and fuselage. The plane went out of control. The pilot, Dale Zelko, managed to eject. He spent several hours hiding on the ground before being rescued by a search and rescue team. And the wreckage of the first and only F-117 ever shot down in combat became a national treasure in Serbia. It was put on display in the Aviation Museum in Belgrade as a symbol that even the most advanced weapon can be defeated. The loss of the F-117 over Yugoslavia was a shock to the Pentagon and the world. It shattered the myth of its absolute invincibility. It became clear that stealth wasn't a magical cloak of invisibility, but rather a suite of technologies that significantly complicates detection but doesn't eliminate it entirely. Nevertheless, the Nighthawks continued their service. They participated in operations in Afghanistan after the events of September 11th, and in the 2003 invasion of Iraq, once again delivering the first, most precise, and devastating strikes. But their time was inexorably coming to an end. Stealth technology had advanced significantly. New, more sophisticated machines had arrived to succeed the first generation of stealth aircraft. The F-2 Raptor 5th generation fighter and the B-2 Spirit strategic bomber possessed far superior stealth characteristics, were supersonic, and carried more powerful armaments. Against this backdrop, the angular and slow F-117, built on 1970s technology, began to look like an anachronism. Moreover, its maintenance was incredibly expensive. The special radar absorbent coating required constant care and reapplication in climate-controlled hangars. Any scratch or chip could dramatically increase its visibility to radar. In 2008, after 27 years of secret and combat service, the U.S. Air Force officially retired the F-117 Nighthawk from service. It was a quiet and modest end for an aircraft that had once changed the rules of war. It seemed the story of the Black Phantom was over, but that wasn't entirely true. Even after their official retirement, many F-117s were not sent to the scrapyard. They were mothballed at their old home base of Tonopah in Nevada, kept in flyable condition. In the years that followed, aviation enthusiasts and spotters repeatedly sighted and photographed Nighthawks in the skies over the desert. For a long time, the Air Force did not comment on these sightings, but eventually acknowledged that the aircraft were being used for various research projects, testing new systems, and serving as aggressors in training exercises simulating enemy stealth aircraft to train American pilots and air defense crews. So, even in retirement, the Wobblin' Goblin continued its secret service, helping to prepare for the wars of the future. So, what is the legacy of this incredible aircraft? The F-117 Nighthawk was more than just a successful combat machine. It was a technology demonstrator that ushered in a whole new era in aviation. It proved that the radical concept of stealth not only worked, but provided a decisive advantage on the battlefield. All modern combat aircraft, from the American F-35 to the Chinese J-20 and the Russian Su-57, utilize to varying degrees your support with a like and a subscription is incredibly important to us. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date and never miss our new videos.